Hey there, innovation champions. Melissa Dinwiddie here. Back when I was a professional artist, I used to meet once a month with a group of about a dozen fellow calligraphers. Some of them were professionals like me, and others were, hobbyists. They did calligraphy as an avocation because they loved it just for fun. One of them, Sarah, was the one who invited me to the group, and she actually had been my second ever calligraphy teachers. And she was not only a fellow professional and a calligraphy teacher, she was also wildly prolific. And we actually had kind of a joke in the group that Sarah made 3 pieces before she had breakfast every morning. And it wasn't too far from the truth, because she actually would make pieces in the morning sometimes before she met with us, when we had our meetings. Anyway, at the time, I went through a period where I was really wrestling with some pretty severe creative block. So all of this prolific energy really baffled me. And in fact, I was really envious of Sarah, because I wanted nothing more than to make art at the same rate that she was. But alas, I would no sooner, form the intention of making something than I would just tie myself up in perfectionist paralysis knots. I would just get completely stuck in what I call the comparison trap. And it took me a while to figure out what Sarah had learned long before, that the key is to let go of aspiring toward perfection. I had been so wrapped up in avoiding making mediocre work or bad work, not living up to my potential. I'd had all these people telling me, "Oh my God, Melissa, you're so talented." And I was so concerned about, not living up to that, that vision that people held up for me, that I couldn't make a thing. And what I really needed was to just lower the bar. Because as I finally figured out, and this actually became somewhat something of a motto for me later when I ended up becoming a creativity instigator, we need the crap to fertilize the good stuff. I'm going to say that again. We need the crap to fertilize the good stuff. Years later, many years later, when I started working with teams and I started studying innovation patterns across industries, I realized that Sarah had just stumbled onto something that nature has been perfecting for billions of years. Nature is really the ultimate innovation lab. And it operates on principles that would make the most, people in corporate boardrooms actually really uncomfortable. Because think about it. An oak tree produces, thousands of acorns every season. And maybe one in 10,000. I don't know. I actually don't really know, but let's just say 1 in 10,000, germinates and grows into another mighty oak. And by corporate standards, that's a 99.99% failure rate. But nature doesn't see it as a failure. It sees it as a necessary part of the innovation process. Every acorn that doesn't sprout, it still serves a purpose. Some feed wildlife. Others decompose and enrich the soil. And some teach the tree valuable information about timing, conditions, and placement. Nature understands something that we often forget in our innovation efforts. Volume leads to breakthroughs. But here's where it gets really, really interesting for us as innovation leaders. Nature operates on what I now recognize as the three core principles of my Create the Impossible framework. And understanding how nature applies these can really revolutionize how your teams approach innovation. So again, if you have been following me at all, you know that my Create the Impossible framework has 3 steps. So let's go through them. Step 1, play hard. Nature is constantly playing. Think about how a river finds its path down a mountain. It doesn't analyze, it doesn't strategize, it doesn't hold committee meetings. It simply just explores every possibility. It follows the path of least resistance while testing countless variations. Mushrooms experiment with spore release patterns. Birds try new migration routes. Even viruses are constantly playing with mutations, though, I don't know, perhaps that is not the best example for team dynamics. But here's what's really brilliant. Nature's play is purposeful. Every experiment serves the larger goal of adaptation and survival. And in your teams, this translates to creating environments where experimentation isn't just tolerated. It's celebrated as essential research. So let's talk about the innovation application. Just as nature experiments relentlessly, your teams need permission to try approaches that might not work. When Google implemented their really famous 20% time, if you are not familiar with it, then Google it. They had this 20% time, and they were essentially mimicking nature's approach to innovation through play. That's step 1. Play hard. Step 2, make crap. Here's something that might really blow your mind. Nature's first attempts are always crap by our perfectionist standards. The first feathers, they weren't perfect flying machines. They were probably just fuzzy insulation. The first eyes couldn't actually see clearly. They could just barely detect a light from shadow. But nature doesn't abandon an innovation because the first iteration isn't perfect. It builds on each crappy version, just gradually refining, gradually improving. Evolution is essentially a massive make crap laboratory that's just been running for billions of years and is still running. Take the human eye. We often hold it up as a marvel of design. But did you know it has a massive blind spot where the optic nerve connects and the blood vessels run in front of the light sensors, creating shadows? I mean, come on, by engineering standards, it's like, that's a pretty poor design. But nature doesn't care about perfect design. It cares about good enough to work and improve. So let's talk about the innovation application here. Your teams need to embrace their blind spot prototypes and their shadowy first drafts. And Sarah from the Calligraphy group, she understood this intuitively. She knew that her morning sketches might be crappy, they might be terrible. It didn't matter to her. They were necessary steps towards her masterpieces. So that's step 2 of my Create the Impossible framework, make crap. Step 3 is learn fast. Nature is really the ultimate rapid learner. When conditions change, organisms that can adapt quickly, they're the ones that survive. They're the ones that thrive. Those that can't, well, they become extinct. It's evolution's version of fail fast, learn faster. So here's the key insight. Nature doesn't just learn from its own experiments, it actually learns from everything around it. Trees share nutrients and information through underground fungal networks. Isn't that wild? Bee colonies use dance. I love this because dance was my first creative passion. And bees use dance to communicate food sources. Wolves learn hunting strategies by observing other packs. Isn't that amazing? Nature has created the ultimate learning ecosystem where information flows freely and every participant both contributes to and benefits from the collective intelligence. So what's the innovation application here? Your teams need mechanisms for rapid learning and knowledge sharing that mirror nature's collaborative learning networks. Think of your organization as an ecosystem, just like a forest. Your innovation environment needs the right conditions for different types of ideas to flourish. So think about a healthy forest. In a healthy forest, you will find pioneer species. These are like your rapid prototypers and your early adopters. You're also going to find established trees. These are like your reliable implementers and refiners. You're also going to find decomposers. These are your constructive critics who break down failed ideas into valuable insights. And then you're also going to find your pollinators. These are your connectors who spread ideas between teams. The magic happens when all of these roles work together in a supportive environment. So, how do you create these natural innovation conditions in your tech environment or whatever your environment is? For play hard, create Acorn time, or what I like to call creative sandbox time, but for this nature theme, we're going to call it Acorn time. These are dedicated periods where your team can experiment without any pressure for immediate results. So just as nature overproduces to find what works, give your teams permission to generate volume without judgment. In my Creative Sandbox Way book, I've got 10 guideposts, and one of my guideposts is think quantity, not quality. So that applies here. For make crap, implement evolutionary sprints, where teams start with intentionally imperfect solutions and then iterate rapidly. Because remember, nature's first flight wasn't from bird to Boeing 747. Obviously, that's not a good metaphor because a Boeing 747 isn't nature anyway, but nature's first flight was from tree gliding to slightly better tree gliding. All right, so for learn fast, establish information sharing networks that mirror nature's mycorrhizal, I don't even know how you pronounce this, but fungi. Mycorrhizal, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the fungi that mirror nature's fungi. What you want to do is create connections between seemingly unrelated teams so insights can really flow freely across and throughout your organization. Here's what I learned from studying both Sarah's artistic practice and nature's innovation patterns. Small, consistent efforts compound into really extraordinary results. Just like Sarah's daily creative practice eventually led to her really prolific output, nature's continuous small experiments accumulate into major evolutionary breakthroughs. And the key insight is that both Sarah and nature understood something that most of us resist. I mean, sounds like I'm ascribing, human thinking ability to nature, but hopefully you get the metaphor. The upshot is that consistency matters more than perfection. Consistency matters more than perfection. Think about it. Nature doesn't wait for the perfect moment to innovate. Every season brings new experiments. Every generation tries just slight variations. And this relentless, gentle persistence is what creates those miraculous adaptations that we marvel at. So here's your challenge. This week, I challenge you to observe one natural system and identify how it approaches innovation. Maybe it's how your local park adapts to seasonal changes, or how weeds find creative ways to grow in impossible conditions. If you garden, you probably are, constantly annoyed by weeds. Or maybe it's how birds, collaborate during migration. And then ask yourself, what would our team's innovation process look like if we approach it the way nature does? Remember, nature doesn't innovate despite uncertainty and constraints. It innovates because of them. Your next breakthrough might be hiding in the very challenges that you're trying to avoid. Nature has been perfecting the art of turning impossible into inevitable for billions of years. Isn't it time we started taking notes from the ultimate design lab? What natural innovation pattern are you going to explore with your team this week? I would love to hear what you discover. Ready to transform your team's approach to innovation by learning from nature's ultimate design lab? Click the link in the description to book a complimentary innovation strategy session. Let's explore how the Create the Impossible framework can help you apply nature's time-tested innovation principles to unlock unprecedented creativity and breakthrough thinking on your team. If you found these insights about nature's innovation blueprint valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of innovation champions. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a new strategy for driving creativity and innovation in your work. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic. What natural innovation pattern have you observed that could inspire your team's approach? Maybe it's how plants adapt to their environment, or how animals collaborate, or how ecosystems recover from disruption. Share your insights in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating the impossible. See you next time. Ciao.